Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show, highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyles, community, and neighborhood. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Our house, you who are on the road must have a code that you can live by. And so
good morning and welcome to the talk show All Things Moore County. Thanks for the intro, Dorothy. The Crosby, Stills, Nash song Teach Your Children is going to be one of the major themes of our show today. We are going to be speaking for the entire hour with John Zumwalt, who is the candidate for the North Carolina State Representative in District 52, and with Angie McKew, his treasurer and friend. We had originally hoped, we had invited John and we had invited Jamie Bowles to come on together to have a conversation about the issues in the upcoming March 15th election. The elections, there's a lot riding on a lot of issues in Moore County and in the state of North Carolina. And before we get into the nitty-gritty, I've sort of been taken a lot by the passion that John, whether you'd like to admit it, John, or not, you present as you speak. And Angie McKew, who I've known for many years as a fine real estate broker and a very passionate lady, I did not realize, Angie, that your relationship with John has a 19 or 20-year history. You're not just walking away from your real estate business these next few weeks just to help a guy with some good intentions. It's a lot deeper than that, isn't it?
It really is. Mindy, John's wife, was my dearest and best friend, and
Right.
We've been friends for almost 19 years. And it started out with just what you were saying, teaching.
Right.
And our children were friends, and we became best friends. Mindy was always there for me. So this is a strong relationship. He's a great friend and
Right.
mentor to my children.
So your children, John, by the way, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. Your children actually knew each other before the respective parents did.
Well, to be honest with you, if I didn't have kids, I probably wouldn't have any friends.
I don't think that's the case from what I can see and what I can read about. Angie, Mindy was a teacher in the Moore County public school system
Yes, sir.
from the time you knew her.
Yes, sir.
And John, your background, you're not from North Carolina.
No, I grew up in Texas, and I met Mindy. She was working her way through college to be a teacher, and she was a cocktail waitress, and I was a tugboat pilot. And went in, and as soon as I saw her, I liked her, but she didn't care for me too much.
Really?
I always said if I wasn't funny, I never would have been able to get a date. But she eventually grew to love me, and we were married 34 years.
You moved around a lot. You have a very a vast experience of different. You want to talk because you don't come from a political background, do you?
My goodness, no.
Yeah.
I've always. I guess the best way to put this is I've been able to live a little boy's dream. I wanted to do so many things, and I've gotten to do all of them.
Right.
I wanted to be a policeman. I wanted to be a firefighter. I was a police officer in Houston and in Kingsville, my hometown. I went on to become a firefighter, and I drove an ambulance, and then I became a tugboat pilot. I was there for 3 years. In fact, I told Mindy that if she would marry me, I would take her on a cruise, and I did, on a tugboat. We spent our honeymoon on a 2-week cruise, pushing barges up and down the Intercoastal Canal. And then I decided to go to the fire department, and I was a fireboat pilot at the Port of Houston. I was the president of the union there. And then one day I came home and told her, I think I'd like to join the Army at the age of 37. And being Mindy, she said, okay. And so I did.
So you moved around a lot then during your family's earlier years.
Quite a bit, yep. No, not as much as a lot of military families, but Mindy was always so supportive.
So as a teacher, she would pick up and relocate with you and take her teaching to wherever it was you set up home.
That's right. She taught in, of course, Texas, North
Right.
Carolina, Kentucky,
Right.
Georgia, and this would be a good time for me to mention this. When we came from Kentucky, Mindy, of course, had to be recertified in this state, and she had to take a right at $2,000 a month cut in pay from Kentucky to North Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah.
There are so many issues that I was hoping you and Jamie could sit and talk about today, and we're going to discuss all of them with you. But Angie, being in the real estate business for all the years I've known you, it seems to me like a community. One of the most common denominators of a successful community are jobs and schools.
Right.
You can't have schools if you don't have jobs, because you don't have families if you don't have jobs. And today, in 2016, you see the changing demographics of Moore County and how the younger families are coming in. We have so many kids wanting to come here in our school system.
Well, we do, and that's one of the things. Again, I'm going to speak on behalf of Mindy here. She was all about promoting that. We needed to promote programs for this large demographic of people that was moving to our community, and
Right.
and we've been fortunate in that Moore County Schools is recognizing that, and I think that's one of the driving forces behind John to focus on that and bring education to the forefront. And especially as a realtor, you and I both know that
Right.
is probably the most important thing to the parents that move here.
Right. John, it's a year. Mindy passed about a year ago. Pretty close. But isn't there a freedom for you that a year later, here you are sitting here, talking about things that you're passionate about, but also things that Mindy was passionate about? Because all those years you got from her what it takes to be a teacher, the sacrifices, the low pay. You know it as if you were a teacher.
Well, I do, and I also know it from the side of the teacher's family.
Right.
And by that I mean all the teachers out there and their families. Teachers don't go home at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and they're done. Mindy worked till 10, 11, 12, weekends. She worked a lot. And teachers don't get not nearly the credit they deserve for all the work they put in. And they love their kids. That sounds like such a trite thing to say. So let me say it again. They love their kids. Go talk to them.
Right. I moved to North Carolina back in 1999, and I was always amazed at the property taxes, how reasonable they were. My sister-in-law is a tenured school teacher in Teaneck, New Jersey. She's been with them over 27 years. Her salary is like triple to quadruple what teachers in the state of North Carolina make. She is a special education teacher, 2nd and 3rd grade. She's going to retire next year. There is such a pay disparity in North Carolina. I think there are some studies that we're right near the bottom of 50 states, are we not?
Well, if you listen to the spin that's put out by the legislature,
Yeah.
they're among the highest paid in the world. But the truth of the matter is
The legislature or the teachers?
the teachers, because there is a spin put on it. And, you know, they
Right.
say that you can figure things to make it look any way you want.
Right.
Teachers are some of the lowest paid in this nation. They're in the very bottom. And it's a shame. And, you know, I need to mention Jamie. I wish he could be here.
Right.
Jamie is for good education, of course, and I'm sure he would say, "I'm for higher teachers pay." But if he were here, I would ask him, "Jamie, what are you doing about it? Where are we making cuts in the legislature? Why is the state legislature cutting out funds to our local county? I just don't get it."
Without a lot of political experience, you bring a refreshing perspective to the table, but doesn't it, and I'll just play devil's advocate, doesn't it beg the question that what makes you think that you can go up to Raleigh and be able to understand the system, get into rhythm very quickly, and to be able to best represent the citizens of Moore County? I just ask you that because people will ask.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'll be able to go to Raleigh and immediately be able to get into the system.
Okay.
And but I will tell you this: our current legislator has a network of folks he knows.
Right.
He's on committees that I'm not on.
Right.
He knows people I don't know. What good has that done us? I think what I offer is a voice of someone who talks to the people and understands that I am not up there to do the things that John Zumwalt thinks are the thing to do. I'm up there to do what the people I represent want. And that you cannot do that unless you talk to teachers and to parents. And the other thing I want to say on that is that the reason a voice is so important is because if no one ever brings these things up, if no one ever makes an issue of it on the floor and in the media, it'll never be talked about. We've got to start talking about these things to bring heat on our legislature, and hopefully I'll be one of them that you can hold accountable.
You know, in the past there have been elections in Moore County, and some people pay lip service to them, and it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. It's sort of like the guy that gets on an airplane and listens to the flight attendant's instructions on how to put a life vest on, and he's reading the newspaper. He's not paying attention until they get into some turbulence and they're over water, and all of a sudden everyone's paying attention. But today, we're about 6 weeks out from the election. The sense that I get is everybody is paying attention, as if the election was next week, because some of the issues are so important.
Well, they are important. And one of the problems, I think, in this election is this. I think our county government is catching heat for a lot of the things that should be on the state. The state has, I believe, unfairly and without notice, withheld and reduced monies that should have gone to our county.
Yeah.
And our county, the school board and our county commissioners, who I can't talk about them without complimenting them. They work together so well, and they have excellent hearts for children and for the people of this county. And I have been a harsh critic of them in the past. And they're the new board, and they've come together under the leadership of several people, and I'm so proud of them. But they catch a lot of heat because of cuts they must make. Now, some of the cuts they're making are very difficult. I would be remiss if I didn't say that to them right now, and I hope they're going to be listening, that I have asked you, and I've asked you again, to take teachers' assistants off the cutting board. They are so important to our classrooms. We shouldn't even consider cutting them. Now, having said that, I want to tell you this. They know that. It's not like they sit around and want to cut teachers' assistants, but I want to hope we can put a little extra pressure on them and combine that with their good hearts for children and just take teachers' assistants completely off the cutting block forever, so they don't have to sweat out every year, do I have a job?
I think there was an article in the Pilot just a couple of days ago about the budget planning and anticipated cuts coming up. Every nonprofit that has come on the show has an issue because they have to think outside the box as to how to raise money. The school system, states have cut funds, schools are operating on less, and yet it's the most, you could make an argument that it's one of the two most important parts of what makes Moore County a great place to live. How can you deny the children and the teachers?
Isn't that ironic? Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
That we one of the most important things, our children.
Right.
Yeah, and we're wondering how we can cut. And the last place we should cut is involving teachers and teachers' assistants and salaries.
Right.
If we have to cut, let's go to the other end.
So you're a big believer in that saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, aren't you?
I absolutely know that to be the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe the wheel has been squeaking, but we haven't been yelling about it enough in the last couple of years.
We never yell about it until it's too late.
Does Moore County have is there a perception around the state that Moore County is a fairly well-to-do county?
Yes, and yes. As a matter of fact, that costs us because I don't know if we'll have time to talk about it eventually, but we have taxes that we pay that cannot be, by statute, spent in Moore County. That hurts us. And then we also have the tier system. We're a Tier 3 school, and that means that we pay more money out than we receive. So yes, I should have said Tier 3 county, but yes, that does hurt us.
The perception, you're right. So we have a lot of redefining to do and speaking up for our citizens, because everybody is under the gun right now financially, and everybody's trying to think outside the box. It breaks my heart when I see so many, everybody that comes on who has a reason to be, they're always a very strong reason, and yet there's just so much to go around. But the volunteers that are here for some of the nonprofits, they've settled here. They've come here. Families, Angie, are moving here because they want their families to be here, because this is where they want to raise their family. In the schools, it's the number one conversation you have with your clients, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's probably the main reason you spend so much time with them, is to help them understand the different schools and the communities. And we ask them to go out and visit the schools and meet the principals and the teachers, because we are such a fortunate county in that we have wonderful teachers. As John was mentioning, they work so hard at every level.
Let's come back in the second set. John, I want to hear about your views on the quarter-cent sales tax and why you think it's such a good idea and how the schools can be so positively affected. We'll be back. This is All Things Moore County.
Kind of broad at the shoulder and narrow at the hip. But I swear to you,
welcome back to the second set of All Things Moore County. By the way, the music we're playing throughout the show, kudos to Angie for getting with me. These are some of the musicians and some of the songs that meant a lot to John and Mindy over the years. We heard a little bit of Jimmy Dean, and we talked about that story before.
Right.
But it's music helps us preserve a lot of great memories, a lot of emotions and good emotions.
Precious memories.
Right now, it seems like one of the hottest topics on the table in Moore County in the discussion is the quarter-cent sales tax, I guess, as opposed to raising the property taxes. And you are not a big advocate of raising taxes, but you're a big advocate about this one. Why?
I am.
And tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I've got several reasons. One, and it might even be the most important reason, is because we get to vote on this tax. It's not forced down our throats. It's not a secret. We don't find out about it by reading about it in the paper after the state legislature passed on it. I think our county commissioners have very wisely come up with a plan to allow us to start building new schools. They've allowed us to vote, and I'm definitely voting yes, and would encourage everyone to vote yes, on a 1/4 of a penny sales tax. That's 1/4 of a penny sales tax. And we'll vote on that March 15th, the same day that I'm hoping folks will vote on me. It's not a tax on groceries will not be taxed, gasoline will not be taxed, prescription drugs will not be taxed, and even better than anything I've mentioned yet, every penny raised must be used for building schools. It can be used for nothing else, and it must be used for building schools in Moore County. You wouldn't think I'd have to say that, but we do pay taxes that cannot be used in Moore County. So I don't want anyone to be confused about what I say. I am completely, totally, adamantly in favor of this 1/4 of a penny sales tax.
What kind of response are you getting when you're going out and talking about this in Moore County these days?
All kinds. You get grumpy old people my age who are so sick and tired of being lied to and taxed unfairly. I don't think they can really believe that, we really are going to use this money for schools. A guy like me, that's exactly the way I would have felt about it until I find out the details behind it. And I think that most people, some will always hate it. Some will never vote for it no matter what. But I think the majority of folks will once they realize.
But isn't there a groundswell of support amongst the parents who have kids in the school system?
I believe there is, Bill. I really believe that the groundswell has started, and some of the events that have been hosted by various folks, I think we're going to see it.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So that's going to be voted on March 15th.
March 15th.
And the school funding for construction needs is really what it's going to be earmarked for, and nothing else.
Nothing else.
The reason I ask you that is because I hear things sometimes, and I'm just playing layman. Taxes that come into Moore County, where Moore County citizens pay the taxes, they don't stay here. The revenues leave the county. What's that all about?
Well, I'll give you a good example. March 1st, you and everyone listening to me that lives in Moore County will begin to pay a new tax, not to be confused with the one we just talked about. This new tax will be on services. If you have your car repaired, if you have your refrigerator repaired, you will pay a service tax. That will be imposed on everyone. If you have your watch repaired, and it's very complicated, and you probably need to get someone to explain it to you who knows a lot about taxes, because the way it's written. But I can tell you one thing about it. Not one nickel of that money collected in Moore County will be allowed to be spent in Moore County, because our legislature has voted, has determined that because we have Pinehurst and a couple of other affluent areas,
Right.
that we need to give that money to surrounding counties more than we need it. Now, we have some very, very distressed counties, areas in our county, folks who need help. That's why the commissioners and the school board are in the strait they're in. They're not getting the money back that we're paying, and so they're forced to do other things. And I think they've used a great deal of wisdom in what they've done.
Are you also referring to the North Carolina General Assembly's last budget passed that expanded the sales tax base in all 100 North Carolina counties? Yet that revenue is divided up into only 79.
That's right.
And we were not one of the 79.
We were not one of the 79, and here's what's just as aggravating to me is this. How many people listening knew about that? How many people were told that?
Right.
And Mr. Bowles, I wish you were here because you voted for that, and I would love for you to be able to answer the question. I don't like to sit here and fling arrows at you, but you did vote for that.
Would you sponsor a bill to restore the redistribution of a sales tax back to all 100 counties where the taxes are collected?
I would sponsor that bill in a New York second.
I know what a New York second is. Thank you for that.
But I'm afraid it wouldn't. I'm afraid it wouldn't get far. Those politicians out there laughing, but I would most definitely sponsor it.
Okay. I have a couple of other questions I want to
Okay.
ask you. Do you support the Connect NC bond initiative? And can you talk a little bit about it?
I can. I'm very hesitant on this one, but I do support it. But I support it with and I without reservation. I'm giving you a strong yes that I support it.
Okay.
But I do have some concerns, and those are that I don't trust our legislature to spend that money the way they're supposed to spend it. Our community college here that's done such a great job of supporting education, not just for the college, but also for the schools. They'll get some much-needed help. But quite frankly, I'm not sure that we have the money to service that debt. I don't know where we're going to get it. They say they have a plan. All I can do right now is to trust them because I do know that we have some money coming in. So, yes, I think that's something I will support. In fact, I'm not going to back out from that. I do think that I will support that.
But you want more oversight.
I would like to have some oversight that I trusted. And frankly, I don't trust our legislature to put that money where we, the people, the citizens of this state, need it to go.
What's in it for you? What's it? Well, I mean, you're not doing this because this is not ego-based. This is what's in it for you?
Well, I just kind of got caught up in this bill, and the more that I researched it, the more I found that I just couldn't believe, and the more I read about it and listened to things that are happening, the more that I worked very, very hard to get other people to run besides myself. And for various reasons, the people I wanted to run could not, so here I am. I'm all in. I've accepted no money from anyone, not from anyone.
Right.
And I've been offered. And I spent a lot of my own money for this. What's in it for me? I want to see this become a better place.
Right.
No ulterior motives. Oh, and I have pledged, by the way, that if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, I'll serve 3 terms, and I will serve no more. And I will.
You talking about term limits?
3 terms? Yeah, I will. Yeah, term limits. A term is 2 years. This would be my opponent's 5th term if he's elected. I just think that's too many. I think you get too comfortable with the people who give you money. He's got to say it again, he's a good man. And I think people love him that meet him. It's my opinion that he's not done a good job representing us in the legislature.
Yeah. The politics of Moore County are not the national politics. It's not the negative discourse, the toxic discourse that we see. It's just about what's best for the citizens, not whether it's a Republican or a Democratic initiative. It's just about what makes common sense for the citizens of our county. You're competing against, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, people get sometimes so tired of hearing politicians talk and promise. And I mean, just the other day they had the Iowa caucuses, and I listened to these speeches, and I needed a bag to throw. I mean, it was just from both sides. I'm not picking one side or the other. You're a straight shooter. I mean, you're not political. You're not layered like that. And my guess is you probably could ruffle some feathers just because you want to get right to the point. But you're trying to approach a system that has so many layers of dysfunction from the state and the national level. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it is. And for those of you who are thinking to yourselves, well, what does this hick think he's going to do? I was, my last job, I was for several years, I was the liaison from between the Army's asymmetric warfare group and all federal agencies, and that includes working very closely with the CIA and NSA and DIA and you name it. And so I do understand how to work with agencies. I do understand what it means to talk to people and persuade them and get things done. Yes, I will be a loud voice, but I do understand the correct way to do things, as opposed to just going up there and yelling and thinking that I will accomplish something. So I'll tell you this, put me in office and you'll never, ever regret it.
Yeah. Angie, I love the Facebook presence that some of, John, your blogs, you have such a loyal following, but you don't just need a loyal following.
Yeah.
You need to expand beyond that loyal following, and you're doing that with Facebook, aren't you, marketing-wise?
Yes. We are. We're trying to promote, well, actually, I can't take credit. John's created so much of this on his own. He's done so much research. He's created the web page. He's created the Facebook page, and he's a writer, and he is speaking for the voice of Moore, and that is from the heart. And I can tell you that it is a great place to let a lot of people know about what he's trying to do for this county.
Yeah, you've written a lot, John, about teaching, about teachers. You've written articles. I've seen you post them, but not just because you're running. These were a few years ago. So this is a passion that has been ongoing, not just for this year.
Yeah. When I sit down to write, I write with passion. If I don't have I can just write and very little editing, good or bad, there it is. So it comes straight from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what people get when they listen to you.
Thank you.
We're going to come back in the third set, and we're going to talk more straight from the heart about John Zumwalt and his candidacy. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back.
The fairyland tale that's come true. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine.
I love that song. Dean Martin, you know, you do too, huh?
Oh, I'm a huge Dean Martin fan.
Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra. Do you know Frank Sinatra was a bar singer in Brooklyn?
I'm not surprised.
He came from Hoboken, and he would sing in nightclubs. And my dad was a singer, and he would sing with the, what was it? I forget the name of the Tommy Dorsey.
Tommy Dorsey
group.
band, yeah.
And when Tony Bennett came along, this is the genre that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of know it. I mean, you have good taste.
I got
The
to tell
Rat
you,
Pack.
our family went on vacation in Hoboken and probably went to the same bar Frank Sinatra sung.
That's right. You've been to Hoboken?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What did Hoboken think of you?
Well, we actually went to a New York Police Department birthday party for a guy.
Did you really?
Yeah,
It's a
we
great
did.
story.
And we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hoboken, yeah.
If you saw Hoboken today, you wouldn't believe it. All the yuppies and all the new millennials, they're all living there now in high rises.
Yeah.
Wow.
and it looks like New York City. It looks like Manhattan. And take the ferry across now.
Yep, I've done that.
To Manhattan. Have you?
Sure have, yeah.
Gee, New York didn't rub off on you, huh?
Let me tell you something. The ferry, if you go to New York, that's one of the best tourist things to do that's unknown to people. It's free.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just walking around, people watching. I know. So you can't say you can't say anything bad about New Yorkers, right?
I love New York.
My son's a New Yorker
That's
now.
right. That's right. Your son, who knew John's son.
Yes.
In school.
That's how we met.
And
through our sons.
so both your sons are about what age?
29.
Wow.
Yeah, 29.
I don't know
And
if
they're both in the entertainment
Now,
industry.
he looked at me. He was surprised mine wasn't like 40.
No, I wasn't.
But we have to brag
Angie
on
wins
them.
that contest. I'm sorry. She wins that contest. I like your humor, by the way. You need to have a sense of humor. Otherwise, what do you have? We mentioned that you have a lot of loyal followers and friends and advocates, but you're reaching out to a lot of other people as well. I've been furnished a couple of questions from different people who have read your blogs and your articles, and they're pretty specific questions, which I think is a good thing, because people want to know specific answers to specific things. You ready?
Yep.
Please address your position on the state push for charter schools and achievement school districts.
Great question. Most people, when they talk about charter schools, only talk about the dream of what charter schools could be. They don't understand what charter schools have become. And I've actually written about this quite a bit. One of my pet peeves is the fact that our state government has literally given millions and millions of dollars to bogus charter school operators who buy a piece of crap building,
Right.
put kids in it, rent it back to themselves, sell themselves equipment, and give substandard education. Now, that's the worst thing that can happen. The best thing that can happen is what we see in good charter schools, the ones that everyone knows about. So I would love to see a good charter school operated correctly with the right funding, but let me say this first. Before I would give a nickel to a charter school, I would make sure that our traditional funding for our traditional schools are funded fully. We have what we need. Teachers are paid what they should be paid, and our teachers' assistants are safe before I put a nickel anywhere else.
You mentioned teachers' assistants. Can we talk about them for a minute? Because you talk about a group that doesn't get a lot of respect. Overworked, always seemingly so expendable, so unfair.
If people only knew. The teachers' assistants would come in early, stay late. So what they do, they put them on a hourly wage.
Right.
Now, if they work so many hours, they have to clock out. If they stay late and get overtime, they're in trouble. Mindy used to talk about her teachers' assistants when she first started and mentioned the fact, as do other teachers I talk to here, they cannot possibly supervise a class of kindergartners, for example, when you have one problem child, which every teacher does, and by the way, having a learning disability and to be mainstream, that's not peculiar to the lower income people. That's any family. So this is not a lower income problem. Teachers' assistants they're a necessity. They're a requirement. Thank God for teachers' assistants.
Are you in favor of expanding early childhood education, pre-kindergarten? Because the funding really has not kept pace with the need, has it?
Well, no, it hadn't. And for me to say, the question was, am I in favor of expanding early childhood?
Yeah.
Well, the only alternative is that would be to be against it. And of course, I'm not against it. I'm in favor of it, but I also understand funding.
Right.
And that brings us right back to our state legislature. Where could we get the money? Where could we get the money to fund this type of thing? And the answer is we have to prioritize our efforts. We've got to spend money where it's the most important. I don't believe in subsidizing a lot of the things that we're subsidizing, and I'm still looking into that to be more specific. But yes.
How do we get over the embarrassment of the average pay for North Carolina teachers? That has to be addressed almost right away. We'll lose talented people to other states.
Well, we get over the embarrassment, obviously, by paying them more money, paying them what they deserve.
Right.
And
Right.
I've got to say this: the county can only do so much, especially when they've been caught off guard by the lack of funds coming from the state that they were expecting. That was a promise to them.
You can't do these things overnight.
No.
If you go to Raleigh, you're going to go to with the idea of starting to change the tone of the voice of Moore County, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight.
Well, you know what? That's what I said. I think I said that in my opening, my statement when I announced that I was going to run for this position. You can't do it overnight, but
Right.
you can make it an issue. You can make people understand, and you can be in the newspapers and radio constantly bringing this up until people are fed up because they truly do understand what the truth happens to be.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at all these. These are some great questions. Are you in favor of adjusting the A to F school grading to emphasize growth and not just one yearly test score?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
When you talk about testing and grading,
Yeah.
first of all, we'll go with your question.
Okay.
The question, am I in favor of the whole idea of grading a school and making a principal, if you will, be graded, because of it's a low-performing school, and to grade it between A and F is absolutely ludicrous.
Right.
It sounds good on paper, but in some of our poor areas, we've got. Well, let's talk about Robbins. Robbins has a great deal of folks who come in there and don't speak English. Now, how are you going to grade them at the same level on the same criteria that you would grade a school on that has folks who speak only English? It doesn't make sense. And so you're going to give that principal a C, a D, or an F because her students don't speak English.
So that brings up a question I have to ask Angie.
Okay.
How many times do you have clients who have gone online and researched test scores, where they use those test scores almost exclusively as a decision to live in one school district versus another?
Always. They're always looking at the test scores.
What do you tell them? What do you tell your clients?
Well, as a realtor, we can't specifically say which school that your child should attend.
Right.
We ask them to understand, and I can say this because I was a former Moore County school employee as well.
I didn't know that.
And years ago,
I didn't know that.
Years ago, I started out as a teacher assistant with Michelle Lester. Yeah, Pinehurst Elementary. So it's a long time ago. But I can say that the parents are so worried that those grades are an indicator of the type of teachers that are at these schools.
That's right.
And in fact, it is nothing from the truth.
That's right.
They are not judged properly. The teachers at all of our schools bring great education, but this is truly a mark of where these parents want to send their children.
Right.
So it's important, like what John said, is that the testing has gotten out of control. The emphasis is not on bringing in the talent that we need,
right,
and keeping it there, and the focus on children. We really need to focus in that direction, and parents are looking for that. That
right.
is absolutely what they want.
Yeah, and real estate brokers are sometimes your first line of support and expression about the school districts and about because you're right, you have to present everything fair and balanced and let the client make the informed decision. Right. But you're trying to change or not level the playing field as much as redefine it.
Well, anyone who's listened to me speak or read anything I've ever written, knows that I always use the one word, facts. Right. And you cannot present facts with a letter grade. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but we've got to be able to make people understand this school is performing at this level, and here are the criteria, right. And here are the things that they're struggling with. And these are things that shouldn't reflect on the abilities of the teacher or of the principal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me see. We have, oh my gosh, I'm so pleased I got such a great response. Come back with me for just a minute to the lottery funding. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much we really talked about that, but that funding is now at 18% instead of 40%. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the the gaps that you would want to try to fill?
It's one of the things I want to address. And if you're listening to this and you're anywhere near a computer, I would like for you to go Google this, and I would like you to try to figure this out. I used to think that E equals MC squared was pretty confusing, but it's nothing compared to trying to figure out this lottery thing. The people of this state voted to have a lottery, and they were told, and I was one of them, we were told that it would be 40% would be funded for schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're down to 18%. Now the big question is, what does that really mean? Where does that 40% go? Where does the 18% go?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is, I have spent hours and hours chasing my tail, trying to figure this whole mess out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the most confusing thing I've ever had to do. Now, it shouldn't be confusing, Bill. We should be able to understand where that money goes. Part of it goes to the general fund. Part of it's not used for schools. I don't know what the heck it's used for. Maybe my opponent, and I wish he were here because no doubt he would be able to explain it much better than me, but it needs to be explained to the people of this state. Whether we agree with it or not, we need to know the facts and understand them.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes people don't pay as much attention as you wish they would. But in Moore County, it's a intimate enough community that people are starting. Facebook is a tremendous engine of communication amongst people. 10, 15 years ago, I don't know if it would have been as easy for you to come forward as a new person on the block without any political experience. But we have a saying in Moore County, 2 years is a lifetime. 1 year could be a lifetime. You can, if you do all the right things and you know the right people, you can reinvent yourself very quickly. But you're not reinventing yourself. You're just expressing yourself in a way that you hadn't prior to this.
No doubt. 15 years ago, forget it. I wouldn't have had a chance. I wouldn't have attempted it.
Right.
Without social media, without being able to write on the internet, without having a blog, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have had a prayer.
What happens between now and March 15th for you? What are your plans? You're marketing aggressively through the social media. You're speaking at different groups.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be coming out with some radio ads and some pretty strong newspaper ads and quite a bit of radio. But primarily, it's just by, so I depend on social media a lot. And I would say that the different clubs, the men's club, Republican Men's Club, and Republican Women's Club, have been extremely gracious to me, and I have very much appreciated that. They have a candidate in Jamie Bowles, who they've supported, and many of them like, and he's a very good friend of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have very much appreciated how gracious they've been and how kind and allowing me to speak and listen to what I have to say.
So from an outsider's point of view, I can say that just your presence in this particular race has changed the conversation, number one. And if people can acknowledge that you've changed the conversation, you've been very successful.
Well, Bill, obviously, I want to win.
Right.
And but you're right. Even if I don't,
Uh-huh.
my hope, my prayer is that at least we have some issues out front now. It will force my opponent to talk about these things, to acknowledge them, and if he goes back to Raleigh to represent us in a way that my opinion is that he should do a little better on.
Yeah. Angie, after 19 years, I love the way you're sitting here listening to John speak.
Mm-hmm.
This is a passion for you. You're a busy lady, but this is more important to you right now than just about anything else. It's for lots of reasons.
Right. It is. He's been a great friend. He and Mindy have been our dearest friends.
Right.
And I've known him a long time, and I know his heart. And it truly is to speak out for the people in this county.
Right.
And I would like to see a candidate like that who truly has a genuine interest. No other agenda, no business to support, no other reasons to be in Raleigh except to help the people.
Which, by the way, is a trait that you share with him. You don't have an agenda to support at all. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I like about you. You're just doing this because in your mind it's the right thing to do.
It is.
Period. End of story.
It is. My other son joined the military years ago, and that was when I asked, why did you do that?
Uh-huh.
And he said, because it's the right thing to do. And I think John is that person. He does things because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Her son learned from the mother, huh?
Well,
I think.
Yeah.
A little
Both
bit.
of them are hard-headed.
Really?
Really.
Well, we're
Really.
fortunate because all four between our two families, we're very blessed with very entrepreneurial, smart young folks. So,
John, you're in a great position, and you have the potential and the possibility of being a tremendous advocate for a lot of people. And I like how people admire you. Tell me where people can go to read about some of your articles, some of your daily postings to catch up on your campaign.
Okay. I would like for folks to go to a blog site called The Voice of Moore County.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually type in VOMC. That's the letter V as in Victor, OMC. And you can read some things I've written over the last 5 years or so. So you can get an idea of, is he just faking this? Is he just saying these things? Or has he always felt this way? You'll see that I'm a very conservative constitutionalist. Doesn't mean that I'm an old cranky guy who wants to enforce my will on everyone. The other place they can go is to my Facebook page, which is the one I'd like for them to go to is Zumwalt for More. And they can read the things I've written about my campaign. They can go to my Facebook page, just JD or John Zumwalt.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a website, Zumwalt, A Voice for More.
Right.
And which I'm still working on and will continue to be.
There's another site, too, No More Good Old Boys.
Oh, yeah. No More Good Old Boys was one that I made on Facebook.
More, M-O-O-R-E.
M-O-O-R-E, No
Right.
More Good Old Boys. When I just decided I was sick and tired of the foolishness that goes on, and I just decided I was going to write about it and talk about it, and other people have gotten involved. But I had no intention of running when I made that. In fact, someone may be listening and say, you actually said you would not run.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I stated I will not run for office because I wanted to feel free
Mm-hmm.
to say the things I wanted to say without
Mm-hmm.
anyone thinking I had an ulterior motive.
Mm-hmm.
But here I am.
Well, I think you have great motives. I wish you the best of luck. You'll have a busy 4 to 5 weeks coming up, and you just keep telling it like it is. John Zumwalt, thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. I sincerely appreciate it.
Angie, I'm great. I'm so glad that you could join us.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Yep, and this was a great conversation and a great introduction. We just wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
I fell into a ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. And it burns, 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 the ring of fire.